Generation 5 gave us a total of 156 new Pokemon, the most out of any Pokemon generation. But the more there are, the more likely a Pokemon will get overshadowed or forgotten, with Heatmor and Durant being prime examples of this. First off, let me answer the question most of you probably have. Why am I doing a forgotten Pokemon on both Heatmor and Durant? They're not a part of the same evolutionary line or anything. Well, you see, these Pokemon are classified as Counterpart Pokemon, which are essentially Pokemon who have similar traits that are not a part of the same evolutionary line. Other examples include Magmar and Electabuzz, Pinsir and Heracross, and Tauros and Miltank. But that's not the only classification they have. These guys are one of the two rival groups, along with Zangoose and Seviper. And while I'm sure there are other Pokemon that have long-standing feuds, Heatmor was created with Durant in mind and vice versa. So while I can definitely talk about Mawile without Sableye, who are technically counterparts, it'd be a bit harder for me to talk about Heatmor without Durant because they share so many traits. And one last thing. I'm opening this Forgotten Pokemon series to both Pokemon that nobody remembers and Pokemon that people might remember but seem to be forgotten by the Pokemon Company, so that'll definitely give me more options. With that explanation out of the way, let's get on with the facts. Heatmor the Anteater Pokemon and Durant the Iron Ant Pokemon were both introduced in Generation 5 along with 154 other Pokemon. For the facts, I'll start with Heatmor because he comes first in the Pokedex. Heatmor is based on an anteater, surprise surprise, that incorporates some elements from an engine, such as its tail being an engine's muffler. Heatmor is a pure fire type with the abilities Gluttony, Flash Fire, and White Smoke. Some decent abilities, but nothing special. Speaking of nothing special, look at these stats. Aside from a good special attack and a decent attack stat, what else does Heatmor have going for it? Sure, you can run it as a mixed attacker, but good luck outspeeding anything with a speed stat of 65. Not the slowest thing in the world, but almost every fully evolved Pokemon slower than it has some good bulk to back up their poor speed. These defenses are not going to back anything up. Heatmor's move pool is also lackluster. It has barely any type coverage and has nothing that can be used to buff its best stat, but you can just run him as a physical attacker. Breed some dark moves on it, give it Giga Drain for some water type coverage, and give it a hard-hitting fire type move like Fire Lash. What the hell is Fire Lash? Heatmor has a signature move? And it isn't complete crap? Who knew? So give Heatmor Fire Lash, Sucker Punch so it can actually move first, Giga Drain, and I guess Body Slam or Knockoff. I would say give it Hone Claws or Curse, but it'll probably never get those off, but that's for competitive battling. If you want to use this thing on your team for a playthrough, well, you better have enough room in your party first. Heatmor is located at Victory Road in Black and White, Twist Mountain in Black and White 2, and Route 18 in X and Y. Let me repeat that. Victory Road, aka the literal last destination in a main series Pokemon game, Twist Mountain in Black 2 and White 2, which is in the post-game, and Route 18 in X and Y, which is pretty late, but at least it isn't Victory Road. So yeah, you probably won't have another slot open in your party by the time you reach Heatmor's location. Let's take a short break from Heatmor and talk about the durable ant Durant. According to Bulbapedia, Durant is most likely based on the Argentine ant that is native to South America. The reason why I say most likely is because the only similarities Durant has with the Argentine ant is the jaw and the fact that they are both ants. Durant is a steel bug type with the abilities Swarm, Hustle, and Truant. Taking a look at Durant's stats, wait a minute, Truant? Why the hell does Durant have Truant? For those of you who don't know, Truant makes it to where a Pokemon with the ability attacks every other turn. It's an awful ability, but it was created with the sole purpose of making Slacking a balanced Pokemon during a playthrough. So that must mean Durant has beyond legendary stats, right? No. Durant actually has the same stat total as Heatmor, but unlike Heatmor, Durant's stat distribution is much better. Durant has good attack, good defense, and good speed. Sure, everything else is bad, but I'd much rather have a Pokemon who is good at something over a Pokemon who is below average at everything. But do these stats need Truant to keep Durant from being broken? Absolutely not. Slacking has a stat total of 670. That ties him with Pokemon like Kyogre or Groudon and Regigigas. Durant has a stat total of 484, which puts him lower than Pokemon like Blossom, Unfezant, and Huntail. Yeah. Slaking needs Truant. Durant... Actually, does Durant have any moves that can transfer its ability over to the opponent? Like, Skill Swap or something? I know it'd be kind of odd for an ant to have a move like Skill Swap, but if Ghastly can learn Fire Punch, then anything's possible. Let's see here, Metal Sound, Fury Cutter, I'm seeing a lot of moves here that benefit that good attack stat, but, Entrainment. Entrainment changes the target's ability to match the user's. If a Pokemon affected by Entrainment is switched out, it regains its original ability. So, that's it. That's the reason why Durant has Truant, for a gimmick that isn't really that viable. Sure, you can give Truant to an opponent, but you will still have Truant, and all the opponent has to do to get rid of Truant is, switch out, and Durant can't do anything because he will be slacking off the next turn. So, yeah. Durant has a useless hidden ability. Anyways, let's move on to Durant's locations. Durant can be found in Victory Road in Black and White, Twist Mountain and Clay Tunnel in Black 2 and White 2, and Route 18 and Terminus Cave in X and Y. Durant can be found in more places than Heatmor, but it's still at the end game and the after game, so it isn't much better. And I forgot to mention, both Heatmor and Durant aren't used by any notable trainers in any of the Pokemon games, so that's great. Now it's time for Pokedex Entries. Durant's entry from Black reads, they attack in groups, covering themselves in steel armor to protect themselves from Heatmor. Oh yeah, that steel armor you got there will do wonders against Heatmor. Black 2 and White 2's entry states, individuals each play different roles in driving Heatmor, their natural predator, away from their colony. Care to explain the different roles? Or at least one? You idiots are 4 times weak to this thing. But if you came up with roles that drive Heatmor away, then tell me. Like, I want to know. I really do, because I know the Pokedex is limited on text, but you could at least say something like, for example, some Durants gather in groups and throw rocks at Heatmor. I mean, come on. I want to know how you repel something that you are 4 times weak to. Anyways, Heatmor's Dex entry from White reads, using their very hot, flame-covered tongues, they burn through Durant's steel bodies and consume their insides. Alright then. Black 2 and White 2, it draws in air through its tail, transforms it into fire, and uses it like a tongue. It melts Durants and eats them. You know, I find it very hard to believe that these two are rivals. I talked about how they are known as rivals earlier, but why? Because this has got to be the most one-sided rivalry I've ever seen in my life. I mean, another rivalry known by many Pokemon fans is Zangoose and Seviper, and yeah, that's an example of a good rivalry. Sure, in the animal kingdom, the mongoose will normally reign supreme over the snake, but in terms of Pokemon lore, Zangoose and Seviper are pretty evenly matched. Zangoose is normal, and Seviper is poison, and both of those types don't really do anything to each other, and in terms of the Pokedex, the Zangoose has claws, and Seviper has a tail that's spiky, I guess. So, they're pretty evenly matched, unless Zangoose has his hidden ability, but that's besides the point. But what I'm getting at from these Dex entries is, Heatmor comes in, melts some motherfuckers, then leaves. Why not have a Dex entry that says, Heatmor has to battle his way through harsh and intricate mazes to find its meal, Durant. That would make me believe there's some semblance of a rivalry. Or they could, explain the different roles Durant used to drive Heatmor away. But knowing the fact that they use steel coating to protect themselves from a fire type makes me think these roles aren't well thought out. But seriously, rivalry. Predator versus prey. No, this is a perfect example of predator and prey. There's the predator, then there's the prey that gets eaten by the predator that is obviously superior. There's no reason to add this forced rivalry, especially when it wasn't well thought out at all. But hey, maybe the anime will center an episode around this long-stored rivalry. Yeah, let's move on to anime appearances. Heatmor has 8 anime appearances, with 2 of them being major appearances. Well, according to Bulbapedia, but in actuality, Heatmor only plays a somewhat small role in one episode. Evolution by Fire as one of the Fire Warriors. But this episode focuses more on Ash's Tepig coming to terms with the fact that his old trainer abandoned him. The other episodes / movies Heatmor stars in are the blink and you'll miss it type. So no Heatmor episode, but that's kind of a good thing because the less you hear its cry, the better. Durant has 2 appearances in the anime. Yeah, 2. One being a small role in the movie Genesect and the Legend Awakened, and the other being in the episode Battling the Leaf Thieves. Unlike Heatmor, Durant actually has a hefty bit of screen time, but sadly, this episode is just a bland filler episode. I mean, the Swaloon evolves, I guess, but it did teach me one thing. Durant is the equivalent to Pokemon like Meditite in the games. You know, the type of Pokemon who love spamming Protect. So yeah, the anime didn't have an episode that focuses on the rivalry. You'd think it would because the Pokedex in the games focuses on that fact alone, but the crew running the anime probably planned it, but forgot because, I mean, come on, this is Heatmor and Durant we're talking about. But why are these 2 forgettable? The anime, yeah, they're hardly in it, but there's a reason. Actually, no, there are 2 reasons. 2 very important reasons as to why I think these 2 are forgettable. Like I said earlier, the fact that Heatmor and Durant were introduced with 154 other Pokemon really hurts their recognition. Well, it hurts the recognition of a lot of Gen 5 Pokemon, but that'll be for another video. The reason being very self-explanatory. The more Pokemon introduced, the more you're likely to forget about. And before any of you comment saying, Kanto had 151 Pokemon, I remember all of them just fine. First, the Pokerap exists, and second, the first 151 Pokemon were the first batch of Pokemon ever created. And remembering 151 Pokemon is much easier than remembering 156 Pokemon that were added to 492 Pokemon. Another reason why I consider these 2 forgotten Pokemon is the fact that you get them so late in your journey. I mean, seriously, Victory Road, that's just Black and White. Black and White 2, they're post-game. You can't get them, but Victory Road for these things. Like, these 2 average at best Pokemon will basically be the last 2 Pokemon you will ever see in Black and White. So, the likelihood of having room on your team for these, or wanting to make room for these, is pretty low. But this isn't a case where you take these Pokemon and move them to an earlier route like with so many other forgettable Pokemon, because, well, while I did say their stats aren't anything special, they're still high for early game and even mid game in some cases. Like, you can't just put Durant in a place like Wellspring Cave because it'd do incredibly good for the majority of the game. So, I understand why the game devs made them such a late encounter, but just because a Pokemon is a late encounter doesn't always make them forgettable. Take Dino for example. Dino is found in Victory Road in Black and White, and its evolution Zuelos is found in Victory Road in Black 2 and White 2. So Dino is basically in the same boat as Heatmor and Durant, but do you want to know why people remember the Dino line? It's because Hydreigon is a Pokemon worth getting. Not in terms of just stats, but design-wise and type-wise, type coverage-wise. If Heatmor and Durant had something special or unique about them, then everything I just said about them being late encounters would be thrown right out the window. Make Heatmor like an anteater ninja hybrid thing, Fire Dark. Make Durant a soldier ant that has wings or something. I literally just came up with that on the spot, and that sounds so much cooler than what we got. Make them cool, cute, interesting, or something. Give me a reason to want to use them, but not just in terms of design. Heatmor is basically a poor man's Emboar. Emboar has better stats, a dual typing, and access to more moves. And comparing Heatmor to the other fire types in the Unova region isn't even fair. Darmanitan, Chandelure, Volcarona, Reshiram, hell, I'd even recommend Simisear over Heatmor because it at least has a speed stat. God, Heatmor is just beyond outclassed, so Why not give it a dark type or a ground type or access to more moves? Just give it something, because making it a pure fire type and sprinkling it with some piss poor stat distribution just makes people want to pass it by, which in turn makes it forgettable. I honestly can't say the same about Durant when it comes to stats, moves, and typing, because he's pretty viable. Sure, Escavalier came out at the same time, but given the fact that it's so tedious to evolve him, makes Durant a good secondary choice. It's just the design that loses me, a silver ant. And when you compare that to the aforementioned Escavalier, it's no contest. Escavalier is so much more creative. But I'll give Durant points for being a Pokemon I'd consider using on a team. So what can be done to save these Pokemon from obscurity? Well, let's see, it'd be hard to get away with doing the whole early encounter thing, so, stat buffs? You can't make major changes to their design, so what else is there to do? Maybe make Ash use one in the anime? I know that's a cheap way of getting a Pokemon over, but that's how people remember Snorunt. So, I mean, it's obvious that the game devs want us to remember these Pokemon because of Durant's gimmick with Truant and Heatmor's Fire Lash, it's a signature move. Not many Pokemon can say they have a signature move, but it's just, these two are just so bland, and it was basically inevitable that they be forgotten. But a stat buff will definitely help. Ever since X and Y, we've been seeing small stat increases to Pokemon like Pidgeot and Scolipede, so buffs Heatmor's speed and Durant's, HP. I mean, you have to buff both because of the rivalry shtick they've got going on, but other than that, there isn't much to do. So what are my final thoughts on these Pokemon? Well, I'll be honest, Durant isn't as forgettable anymore, and it's all thanks to Truant. The fact that a Pokemon as basic as Durant has such an odd gimmick makes me think I'll remember it, and the stats look pleasing, so I might use one in a Gen 5 run. I'll most likely breed it in one game and send it over to the playthrough file so I can use it more than 40 minutes, but Durant's cool. Heatmor, on the other hand, is now one of my least favorite Pokemon of all time. It's so outclassed, and I didn't even go over my problems with the design, but I'm gonna save all that for another video. Hint hint, nudge nudge. What are your thoughts on Heatmor and Durant? Be sure to leave them in the comments section below or I will find you. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, follow me on Twitch if you want to see me stream some games, and follow me on Twitter if you want to stay up to date on what videos I'm working on, when streams are live, and other stuff. Who's next on Forgotten Pokemon?